People, deluded, I'm back again. You guys know I like Brazilian talents, and one Brazilian player I like, he's 16, so it's impossible to see how far he can go, is Reiner. I hope I've said his name correctly. I probably haven't, so forgive me, but his name's correct in the description. From what I've seen of him, I've actually bought him a Football Manager as well because he's sick, but I couldn't get a work permit because he's 16. He's got the first thing that strikes me is the flair. I think he could possibly be. He's a good midfielder. I think his position should probably be a 10. I know he can be utilised not only in the 10 or a deeper midfield, but on either flanks. There's a lot of potential, especially when you're 16. You're played all about everywhere. In regards to what position he develops in long term, I'm not too sure. I need to do my research a bit more on the player. I've seen a decent amount of him, but I wouldn't say I have extensive knowledge. So in my head, he's a 10, or he can be a 10 long term, or if he's not that, a creative spark of the team, someone that's that's more or less in charge of being the difference maker, providing creativity into the side, if you don't want to say 10. But I like him a lot, man. Plays for Flamengo, a team that's been developing a lot of historical Brazilian talents and has got a good pipeline of them now. You look at Linton, you look at Junior. There's several players, man, and here and there, and some that I have no awareness of. If a Brazilian man, them that pre the academy like that, you know, in it. So they're doing their thing. He's got all the things you look for in a typical Brazilian. It's freedom, expression, creativity, bravado. I mean, he can hit step-overs. He can do quick little turns to evade challenges. You think you're going to nick the ball off him and shift it onto his other foot. He's a good passer. You obviously saw him score for Flamengo's under-17s recently as well. He's a very decent player. He's 16, so making the move abroad to any country in Europe especially would be very tricky because of he's underage, because of work permit issues. In fact, even when he turns 18 and can leave the country legally, I know a lot of underhand practices happen by agents and bigger clubs, but he might still have issues in that regards. I think his development would be best served at Flamengo until he's 18. Things can change, and he knows what's best for him more than me, but probably be best served staying there until 18 years of age, possibly even longer than 18 years of age. Everyone calls Neymar this and that. Neymar's heavily spoken about. He's clearly a world-class player. Some people can call him overrated, but some people forget he waited until the right moment to actually leave Brazil to go to Barca. He went Barca when even then he had to adapt. He still had to wait a bit, but when he was when it wasn't a thing where it's just potential, obviously it was still potential, but it's not just potential, he's somewhat the finished article to a degree. Too often a time you see a player that's got a bag of potential, has played to a high level for 1 year, he joins these elite clubs, and then it's a different ball game. Because even the most elite of players, when you play for the Barcas, the Madrids, I don't want to say United, but historically United, and to a degree Bayern Munich and PSG nowadays, Munich forever, but nowadays PSG, you've got to be a different. You not only have to be the finished article, but how you handle yourself off the pitch, how you deal with the attention, how you deal with a lot of things. More time off the ball, off the field. Sorry, is what you've got to deal with. And for an 18-year-old, it might be too much to handle, especially if he's with all the hype that young players get these days. He would still have to adjust. He would still have to adapt to European competition. I think he's got the ability to hit the ground running, but we also need to mitigate or think about if that wasn't going to be the case for him. So possibly his development would be best served, playing until he's 18 in Brazil, maybe joining a club in Europe which would allow him to develop further, maybe a club in France, and maybe you see a lot of players go to Shakhtar Donetsk. I wouldn't advocate that. I think he can make the jump and join a certain club straight away, but maybe that. Maybe just staying into past 18, 20 and just wait until you're at the full article. I mean, you're seeing Juventus, you're seeing Manchester City, you're seeing AC Milan, you're seeing some good clubs to play for. The issue is, if he was to wait until 18, let's just assume he turned 18 today, his development could be rapid at 18 and turn into the next madness in it to make it like an Mbappe. I'm not saying Mbappe, but let's just, for that example, if it was a Kylian thing, then cool. But more often than not, you're gonna be waiting for the occasional cup competition. You're gonna be surrounded by stars. You're still gonna need to adapt to how the team train, how the team play, your teammates, the way of life, the cuisine, difference in temperature if there is one. So many things. But I believe he's got the ability, man. He can drift past players. His dribbling's good. He's very expressive. For a young man, he's somewhat of a maverick, and I like him a lot, man. So God willing, he develops to the scale that I believe he can, and a lot of people believe he can. But you guys know I'm not in the game of overrating talents and saying they can do this, that, and the third. I'm a big fan of documenting rather than proclaiming. So we'll see how it goes. God willing, he does that. But for now, people, Deluded. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for tuning in. It means the world, and I'm not just saying that. Times when I think this isn't worth it, this is pointless, etc. I see a lot of positive messages on my YouTube, on my Facebook, on my Snapchat, on my Twitter, Insta DMs. If I haven't said that already, just in public, in face-to-face thing as well. You lot have no idea what you lot do for me, man. So I'd like to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. But on that note, people, Deluded, I'm out. Thank you. Guys, Deluded, I'm back again. YouTube's N'Golo Kante and these sort of things. Now, Lintonmaina, I can't say his name correctly. He plays for Hanover. He's a winger. He can play on either flank. And he's been capped at youth level by Germany. He's only made 5 appearances, I believe, in total from this, well, the season that's just gone, the season before that, I believe. Not too sure if he's played this year. But either way, he's still early in his career and he's only made 5 appearances collectively for the first team. But from what I've seen of him, for the little bits of clips, if I had to put a percentage on my knowledge of him, I'd probably say 45% or so. I haven't got mad knowledge of him and I need to see how he's getting on, and he's one to watch. So I'm not making conclusions, but he looks like he's one to watch. A bit of research showed United are looking at him as well. So if their scouts are looking at him, he can't be half decent. From what can't be half bad. Sorry. From what I've seen, he still looks rough around the edges. Of course, he's 18, 19 years of age. He's not played too many times at top level, but he's a positive player. He's got an eye for an assist. He's got an eye for his teammates. He plays with his head up. He's a positive winger. Fairly skillful, fairly good technical abilities. Could probably showcase a bit more. He does look like one that's decent. Hanover have quite a few young players, so I'll be looking at him a bit more under the season, under the guys a bit as the season continues and stuff, and then we'll see his level. He's still young, like I said, man. He's a very he's quite decent, man. Like I like he can mix it up. He goes short sometimes. He looks to beat his man at times. Probably goals and assists, again, his record don't look too great, so that's the one you've probably got to improve, as do a lot of young players that play in these creative positions and the front 5 positions, as you hear me say it on a regular basis. He looks quite decent. Obviously, as the season unfolds, we'll have to see a bit more what he's on before I draw conclusions, but he's one I'm going to be looking at over the season. He does look decent, and his haircut's not half bad too, but there's nothing more for me to add, to be honest with you. I'd love to hear from you guys that watch him on a more consistent basis. I've spoken with people that are more in the know with Bundesliga like that, and they say he's got big potential, but until he does that, I don't know. I just simply watch football, and if they do it, innit? So, on that regards, guys, Deluded, man. Get in the comments, subscribe, and do the rest if you wish. I'm out. People, Deluded. Now, I've spoken about Luke Mason, I can never say his name, and I've spoken about Daniel Ashead. I cannot say these names, and my pronunciation of names is atrocious. Apologies to both for butchering them. But like I've said, I've spoken about Luke before, and you've seen the vid, and a lot of you spoken on the amount of dislikes I've got. I've got a lot of time for Rochdale. They're not no La Masia. They're not bringing through 10 wonder kids and things like that. But the League One side, forgive me if I'm wrong, they're trusting in youth. Like I said, Luke was 15 years of age, a fullback. They gave him a chance. He's not playing week in, week out, but he's given a chance and he's been given a taste of football. And obviously, you've got big clubs circling. And obviously, Daniel, the man I'm speaking about now, he's a player I've got a lot of time for, and I rate him a lot. Why I rate him first and foremost is because it looks like he could complete a January move to another club, Manchester United, the one that's been spoken of the most. But from the ages of 12 years of age, people have spoken of him as someone that could potentially go all the way in the game and make a good career of himself. Age of 14, obviously, all the top teams in England, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, etc., they all want the best players, so they all knew about him. There was interest from abroad, Bayern Munich and Barca, as there would be at these ages, because everyone's got potential. But I rate him because he stayed still. He stayed at a club. He's 60. I mean, he just turned 17. He signed a 3-year deal, so it'll be what, 20. Just keep developing, keep getting games under your belt, essentially, and the move will come. Because if he was to, I rate him for staying at Rochdale. No disrespect to Rochdale, and I'm sure they've been very good to him, and he's a local lad, so he loves the club, and I don't think he's a big time Charlie. But what Rochdale and Manchester United, for example, or Liverpool or Arsenal can offer him in terms of a football education, coaching, status, and all the other extra things that comes with being a footballer is unrivaled to what Rochdale can offer him. But what Rochdale can offer him that these other clubs can't is assurances of sorts. There's assurances that he's in the club's futures, that he could possibly be one to stand up to be counted. You look at City, that's been linked as well. You look at Arsenal, you look at Liverpool. Yeah, he's good, but he'll just be one of the many talented ones. He'll just be another, literally, what gets you in the door at these top clubs. A top talent, a technically good player, a very intelligent player. And that might make him improve as a player, but he'd be best served staying where he's loved, to be fair with you. He might very well one day look back and think, why didn't I make the move? But you never know. I rate him a lot, man. I like him a lot. I wouldn't say he plays like Dele Alli, but it reminds me just of his mannerisms and his movements and his cute little touches here and there of Dele. He's a midfielder, a creative one of sorts. He's been used on the flanks purely just to get games and minutes and just coming off the bench and stuff like that. The bulk of his appearances have come in cup competitions. He's only made 4 in League One, so he's got a long way to go. I wouldn't say I'm surprised people aren't talking about him, but you would have thought people would be speaking about him a bit more. Would he play 15, 16, 17 minutes against Spurs in their game, however many months ago it was? Yeah, he does his thing, man. He's their youngest debutant as well, at 16 years of age in 17 days. Obviously, when they played Bury, and he got an assist in that game. He's a player I've got a lot of time for. If you watch England's youth ranks and you're plugged in with England's youth, you would obviously see that thingy as well. He was part of the England side, England on the 18 side, that went and won a recent tournament in Spain. And I think he done well against Belgium, and he actually got assist against someone else. Forgive me if I'm wrong. So yeah, he's done well. And I think obviously a sad case like I say it's sad because it's not the norm. For every player like him that stands up and says, all right, cool, I'm not going to go to Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool. I'm going to stay at League One side, Rochdale. There's thousands and millions of kids, no exaggeration, who don't. And then they get tossed aside. On one hand, the education that these top clubs can offer you, both actual education, footballing and tactics and stuff, is unrivaled. But at the end of the day, you could leave all of that and then you're nowhere, essentially. That might happen to him either way that he's still at Rochdale. I don't think it will, but I've got to give you all possibilities. It's a win, because even if you look at Rochdale, my geography isn't the best, but they're in the Manchester region. You look at Manchester clubs or clubs within that close catchment area, and off the top of my head, I'm saying Rochdale, I'm saying Oldham. You might even, can I say Bury, my Manchester people? You could say Bury, Liverpool and Manchester. It's not too far, so you could say Liverpool, you could say Everton, City and United. So the last teams I just said there, Bury, Oldham and Rochdale, they don't have a chance. If you're a talented 7-year-old, all the way from 7 to 12 years of age, you might stay at Rochdale, but once these big clubs come calling, you're going to skedaddle, which you typically have. Or scouting must be a nightmare for these clubs, essentially, because they're having to do twice the work. I mean, essentially, their prospects and whatever are being poached from their academies, being poached off them when they're actually scouting them on the touchline. So yeah, man, the best kids, like I said, or the kids, they all want to go to the bigger clubs, so it could be frustrating. So to see that Daniel's rejected them time and time again, and probably rejected them to the point where only his family and thing know as many times clubs have come calling, it's a good look, man. And I like Rochdale, man. I really hope Luke and Daniel go all the way. Such is the game. If they all realise the ambitions I'm sure they have and their ability that they're showing, they want to play Premier League and things like that. Rochdale, I'd love to see them get promoted. I love fairy tales, but you'd think the ambition the two players probably have and where the club are going to at some point diverge. Right now, one's 15, one's 17, one's 15, 16, one's 17. So they've got a lot of time on their hands, essentially. But yeah, man, it's a good look for him, in my opinion, man. And he's a good player. And I like what he's doing, man. He clearly wants to serve his apprenticeship, get his game time and things like that under Rochdale in League One, maybe move up to the Championship, and then the move happens. And then you look at Dele Alli and Maddison. Obviously, one was playing in League One and straight to the Prem, and one was playing in the Championship. You can't underestimate the grounding that stuff prepares you for, essentially. I know Gomez didn't make too many appearances for Charlton, but even him, to a degree, you can't underestimate the experience that goes into this. They're still raw, but they're able to be a bit more fearless. It's essentially another game. Versus if you say Dele Alli came through Spurs' academy and was given a chance, you might have a different Dele Alli. The same goes for Maddison. If he came through Leicester, you might have seen him as a bit timid, but he came through at Coventry, played a couple games, obviously went Norwich, was loaned out, had to be patient, got his chance at Norwich, done some bad boy stuff. Now he's actually at Leicester and he's ain't made his cap, but he's been called up to England, so it's a good look. this is what can happen if you stay at clubs where you can make your name for yourself, or you sign yourself and do a Jadon Sancho and leave City and go somewhere where it's gonna take time, but they're gonna give you looks. There's many different ways people can make it. You can still make it at these top clubs, but there's no right and wrong. All I'd say is that in the 3 examples I've just given, players need to look back in their career and look and say, I chose to stay at this club. I chose to move, not my agent, my parents, my teammates, the management, false promises, all of these sort of stuff. Sign yourself, because I'm seeing too many young players, 13, 14, they're promised everything. Their parents might be given a house and a job and things like that. They get to 18 years of age, yeah, they might have a little money, but they've got no prospects. Some are actually disallowed to play and trial at other teams because of contractual situations. And yeah, just don't really have a chance. It's quite sad, but it is what it is, man. This is the beast we live in, I guess. But for now, anyways, people, deluded, comment, subscribe, and do the rest if you wish. I'm out, man. I've been here long enough.